the opportunity to be here tonight, and I want to start by telling you a story. It's about a pirate captain. This is the greatest pirate captain of all time. This pirate captain was famous among all pirates as the greatest leader, and his crew came to him one day and said, "Captain, Captain, 2 British frigates sailing up over the horizon, what shall we do?" And the captain looked out over the horizon, he saw those 2 British ships, and he said, "Bring me the red shirt. We'll sink them to the bottom of the ocean." Well, the fight ensued. They won the battle, and after it was over, the crew came to the captain, and they said, "Captain, tell us, why did you ask for the red shirt?" He said, "Because if I was wounded in battle, if I had blood on me, you might have been discouraged, and the tide of battle turned against us." And they said, "You are the greatest leader." A few weeks go by, and the crew comes to him again. They say, "Captain, Captain, 5 huge Spanish galleons sailing up over the horizon. What do we do?" And the captain looked out over the horizon, and he saw those 5 Spanish ships, and he said, "Bring me the brown pants." Well, the reason I tell that story is many times I pack a pair of brown pants for a new group that I haven't spoken to before, but I feel so at home with you guys, and I say that sincerely, and I appreciate the opportunity to get to be here and watch some of the meetings and meet some of you all personally. I want to start by telling you a little bit about myself. When I was born, my parents were living in a railroad boxcar, and I didn't live there very long. I don't even remember it, but I do remember, and I didn't know I was poor until I was in 7th grade. Some people made fun of my clothes at school, some kids, and I went home, and my parents said, "Yeah, we're poor, duh." And so they said, "But you don't have to be poor. There's a ladder that goes straight out of our house, and we could climb on it as high as we wanted to." And it was based on the free market enterprise and the American educational system. And so I made up my mind at that point to be the first person in my family to graduate from high school. And then I got lucky. I had some teachers that sent me to college, and I went to school over in Missouri, in Springfield, Missouri. By the way, my hometown was Hutchinson, Kansas, if there's anybody here from Kansas. Our town that I was born in was close to Hutchinson, but it was very small. It was so small we shared a town drunk with the next town over. In fact, our town was so small, I went away one summer, and when I got back, they had carpeted it very little. Some of y'all may be from towns like that. But anyway, the point I wanted to make was that when I got to college, I met a man named Sam Johnson. And Sam said, "Tom, if you'll go away from home all summer long, if you'll work 84 hours a week, 6 days a week, go to a meeting on Sunday, if you'll find your own place to live, pay your own expenses, and sell books door to door on a straight commission, you can save enough money in the summer to go back to college in the fall." And so I did that because I had horsepower and I was willing to trade it for purchasing power. And I worked for the Southwestern Company in Nashville for those 4 summers I was in college. And by the way, if you don't know about the Southwestern Company, 7,000 students were selling books from every major college and university in the United States when I did it. It's the oldest company in Tennessee. It was founded in 1868. And they have about 2,500 to 3,000 students now every year that go out and sell books door to door. It's quite a professional sales program. But anyway, I did that for 4 summers. I did very well at that company, and when I graduated, they offered me a job full-time, recruiting and training college students, and so I did that in the Midwest. And after that, I met a man named Bill King. And the reason I'm telling you this is I just want you to know that when I talk to you about selling, I'm sincerely telling you based on my experiences and the successes that I've enjoyed in selling. So when I went to work for Bill King, we had a $9 million company. We were selling products to banks, and although there had been other salesmen before me, I was the only salesperson selling to banks when I went to work there. And we built that from a $9 million company into a little over $1 billion company. We took it to NASDAQ, we took it to the New York Stock Exchange, and when I left, we were an S&P 500 company. So I took my winnings, I bought a piece of software to help banks do lending. From a man in Iowa. I was the first employee, and we grew that to about 1,000 employees, basically on sales, recruiting and training salespeople to sell products to banks. And we got to the NASDAQ, and I left at that point, bought another company that piece of software, again, started from scratch. We built it up, sold it, merged it. It got out to be a public company as well. And currently I own a business in Republic, Missouri. John is from Republic. And anyway, we were, until Walmart moved in, the largest employer in Republic. But anyway, in Republic, we fix ATMs for businesses and banks, mostly banks all over the United States, and we have about 500 employees. So what am I doing here tonight with Neutral? Well, all my career, my business career, 30 years, people would tell me what should I do or ask me what should I do, and I'd always say, do what you want to do your passion, follow your dream. And so I finally got to a point financially where I could follow my dream, do whatever I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do with the rest of my professional career was teach, coach, and talk to people about professional salesmanship. And by the way, I want to tell you a story about salesmanship. You probably have seen my hat. Well, this hat was from the James Locke & Company. I went to a wine tasting in 2006, and this hat's been all over the world, in January. And as I was walking to the tasting on St. James Avenue, I saw a sign that said James Locke & Company in business since 1676. Now, I said it's worth being a little bit late to see why a small retail store had survived for 300 years all the political, social, and economic turmoil that London and Great Britain had gone through. So I went in there, and the first thing I noticed was all they sold was hats. Just hats. They didn't sell anything else. No scarves, no gloves, no shoes, no umbrellas, just hats. So I walked over, and I picked up a hat that looked like this one. And the man was beside me immediately. Patrick was his name, and he said, my name's Patrick, you have excellent taste in hats. He said, that's a Homburg. He said, only CEOs, presidents, and prime ministers wear Homburgs. And he kind of leaned into me and said, Winston Churchill had 21 Homburgs when he died. He said, try it on. I tried it on, it didn't fit, and so he got me this one. He said, try it on, I did. I said, how's it look? He said, sir, a lot of people wear them like that. But the more popular approach is like this. And he put it on my head properly. Well, I took that hat off, and I said, well, you know, I'm from America, and I really don't want to take a hat on the plane overseas. And he says, took it out of my hand, thumped it, said, they're very durable. I said, I know, but a hat on the plane is like another bag on the plane, and it's just not something I want to do. He said, they're half price. This is our January clearance sale. He said, if you wore this hat once a year for the rest of your life, you'd get your money's worth out of it. And then he leaned into me again like he did before, and he said, this hat is heirloom quality. So now I was holding an Homburg, only worn by presidents, CEOs, prime ministers, that I was going to pass on to my heirs. And all I had to do was figure out how to get it on the plane. He took the hat out of my hand. He walked towards the cash register. He said, do you like the hat? I said, yes. He said, I'm going to send it to you at my expense, DHL. It'll be at home when you get back to Nashville. And so I got the hat. Now, I understood as I walked to the wine tasting why they had survived for 300 years, all the political, economic, and social turmoil that they had faced. Because they were customer-focused and sales-driven. And when I look at the great companies in America and the great companies around the world, and I get an opportunity to talk to people like you, I understand that the sales is the gas and oil that drives a free market enterprise. And by the way, I'm excited about being here tonight because tonight we're here to honor salespeople. You know, we're here to honor all the missed birthday parties, the missed soccer games. We're here to honor the missed social events and the family reunions. We're here to honor all the bad rides and the flat tires and the missed planes and the late planes and the canceled flights. You know, we're here to honor all the stale coffee and the bad food and the no lunches. And we're here to rejuvenate ourselves with people when we tell them we're in sales. Don't think pushy, high-pressure, con man, charlatan, cheat, dishonest, crooked, twist your arm, say anything to make the sale. And we're also here to rejuvenate ourselves away from our customers who tell us stories, who don't do what they say, who stand us up, who basically lie to us sometimes. And so as I think about your mission, you know, to fight back. When I think about your mission in the morning, I ask myself, what could I share with you that would help you on your mission? And I've come up with 4 ideas, or maybe 5, depending on how you count. But the first idea, you might as well laugh at these. Mine don't get any funnier as we go. So the first idea that I want to share with you is that you need to get your own personal definition of success. Because if it's truly a fight out there, if there's truly a war, if there's truly a battle to be won, then you've got to have something to hang your hat on every day. And I'm going to suggest it's a personal definition of success. When they said, Tom, you're going to have to go door to door, see 180 people a week, face a lot of rejection, they said the only way that's going to work for is if you find some personal definition of success. I'm 18 years old. I stole mine from Earl Nightingale. Maybe you should get his too or find one your own, but this is mine. You know, success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or dream. I'm going to say that again. For me, my definition is success is a progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or dream. And the reason I share that with you is because it works for me. It doesn't say I have to be the number one. It doesn't say I have to be the best. It doesn't say I have to have the biggest car, or the nicest house, or anything else. All it says is that every day when I get up, I am progressively moving towards my worthwhile goal or dream. And that's really what success is. Now, I've added 3 things to that definition of success over the years, and I share them with everybody that I get a chance to. One is that success is never owned, it's always rented, and the rent is due every day. And the minute you stop paying the rent on success, you've begun paying the rent on failure. You see, yesterday's successes lull us into today's complacencies, which lead to tomorrow's failure. And I heard Don say exactly what I always say, that business is a down escalator, and if you stand still, you go backwards. It's just that simple. The second thing that I've added to my definition of success is this, that there's a common denominator of success. There's a secret. And I think if you're like most salespeople, you want to know the secret. Well, it's fairly simple. Successful people form the habit of doing the things that unsuccessful people don't want to do or know how to do. It's just that simple. You know, I was talking to someone that went to MBA in Franklin at dinner tonight, and he said, how do you know MBA? And I said, well, I coached as a hobby the high school debate team at university school for 8 years. And I learned at that school that it wasn't the smartest kids that made the best grades. It was the ones who were willing to pay the price. Bill King, my first boss, really after the Southwestern Company, he said, Tom, if you want to be successful here, be the first one here every morning and the last one to leave every night. And Woody Allen said 75% of success is just showing up. And there is a common denominator of success. We pay the price. Now, the third thing I want to say is that success is a personally owned venture. There is no company, no manager, no wife or husband, no individual that is going to guarantee your success. You see, psychologists tell us there are 2 kinds of people, the internalist and the externalist. The internalist says, my life is my responsibility. The externalist says it's the car, it's the wife, it's the company, it's the shipping department, it's the accounts receivable, it's the payables, it's somebody, but it's certainly not me. You know, my dad didn't have a lot of wise words. He wasn't an educated man, but he did say this. He said, there are 3 kinds of people, Tom. Those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that say, what happened? You know, I say there are 2 kinds of people. One looks for a way, and the other looks for an excuse. And I challenge you tonight as you go to fight to be the kind of person that goes over, under, around, or through any obstacle that stands in your way to get the job done. You see, the world doesn't care about the storms you encounter. They only want to know if you brought in the ship. It's just that simple. I want to close this idea about success by telling you about a man who I believe is the greatest basketball player of all time. Now, we can argue this at the bar after we're done, but since I got the microphone and Rob asked me to do the... I'm going to suggest that it was Bill Russell. Bill Russell was drafted number 1 as a college student. He had won 2 NCAA championships in a row. He played in the NBA for 13 years. 12 of those years he was an all-star. And 5 of those years he was the most valuable player in the league. And he has a unique distinction as being the only professional athlete in basketball, football, soccer, to any sport you can name, of winning 11 world championships. No other athlete has ever won 11 world championships. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to see the final game of the NBA Finals, and they're going to give the most valuable player in the finals a trophy. It's called the MVP trophy. But if you look closely, it says the Bill Russell trophy. So what does a man like that say about success? I learned it about 20 years ago. I memorized it, and I thought I'd share it with you tonight because I thought it was so valuable. He said the first part is easy. You come on with a good pair of hands at 6'9". The rest is hard work every day. He said there's always some new young player, some hot hand who comes to challenge you. He says he knows your moves. He's watched your films. He wants it every bit as badly as you. And he says long-term success is only guaranteed by paying the price every single day. So the second thing that I want to share with you today is this, that your circumstances don't determine your happiness. Your circumstances don't determine your happiness. Abraham Lincoln said this, happiness is a way of traveling, not some place you arrive. He said, most people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. And as I travel the world, I see poverty and I see happiness. So I know wealth and happiness are not inherently linked. You know, when I graduated from college, I walked across the stage, I got my diploma, I said, I'm going to be happy. Woke up the next morning, didn't feel any different. Got a big job, I said, I'm going to be happy. Got up the next morning, didn't feel any different. I looked around, a lot of guys had cars, I got a big car. A lot of guys had houses, I got a house. Same empty feeling. I looked around and said, what's missing? A lot of guys had wives. So I got one of those. That didn't make me happy either. You see, what I learned was it wasn't a person, it wasn't an accomplishment, it wasn't an achievement or an amount of money that made people happy. It was a way of traveling. And when you go out of this room tonight and you go back to your territories, happiness will be there waiting on you. It'll just be your obligation to see it. And I want to say one other thing. I know a lot of people that I've worked with over the years are members of the I'm going to be happy when club. I'm going to be happy when I get a degree. I'm going to be happy when I get a car. I'm going to be happy when I get a new boss. I'm going to be happy when I get new territory. I'm going to be happy when they get the new products. I'm going to be happy when I get a new job. You know, the funny thing about it is it doesn't work like that. It works every day based on your ability to recognize it. And I want to say one other thing before I move off of this idea of your circumstances not determining your happiness. The press has done us a great disservice. You know, I watch CNN in the morning, and the first thing they say on Monday is, I guess you're moving a little slower today. And the underlying message is, how could you possibly be moving fast? You've got to go back to work. And happiness doesn't occur until 5 o'clock or Friday afternoon. And then on Wednesday, what do they say? Oh, it's hump day. It's hump day, right? And the underlying message is, we're halfway through this hell we live in. And then on Friday, they say, TGIF. And you probably heard it today on some of the newscasts, you know, TGIF, and we all know what it stands for. Thank goodness it's Friday. And you know, the truth of the matter is there is nothing more fulfilling, nothing more rewarding than a richly rewarding job that allows you to move towards your purpose, your definition of success every day. So the third thing I want to share with you is that I want you to think big. You know, a lot of you are thinking, gosh, $50 million a month, that's a lot. And when they said that, I was thinking $100 million a month. And I asked Rob, what's your biggest month ever? And he said $75 million. And I predict that in the next 3 years, you'll be averaging $75 million a month. Because my experience in seeing people like you go to work on a project is that they usually begin accepting their high as their average. And that's going to happen for you all too. I know it will. I'm a soothsayer. But anyway, I want to talk to you about thinking big. You know, there was a little boy who was trying to sell a puppy. It was a dirty puppy. And he had a little 4x6 card up that said, puppy 50 cents. And a salesman saw this and he said, son, you're never going to sell that puppy that way. I want you to get a pink bow. I want you to get a big price. And I want you to wash that puppy. So that night when the salesperson came home, there was a sign that said, puppy, $10,000. And across the sign was written, sold. So the salesman said, I think I'll be late for supper. He went up, knocked on the door. A little boy came to the door and he said, did you sell the puppy? And the little boy said, I sure did. And the salesman said, how much did you get for it? He said, $10,000. He said, how'd you even think of that number? The little boy said, you said to think big. And $10,000 was the biggest number I could think of. He said, son, how did you get $10,000 for that puppy? And the little boy said, it was easy. I took 2 $5,000 cats in trade. So there's a pet joke you can use this week. Anyway, I just want to say that thinking big is important. You know, the Brown Shoe Company sent a salesperson to open up the territory in Africa. He was an experienced salesman and very good. He came back failing. They said, why didn't you succeed? He said it was impossible. Nobody in Africa was wearing shoes yet. They sent a rookie to keep the territory open, and they asked the rookie how he became the #1 salesman in the company. And he said, it was easy. You gave me great territory. Nobody bought shoes yet. It's absolutely true. You know, when we think big, there's a law of the universe. What we ardently believe, the universe will deliver. I believe in inspirational books. Pick up the book, The Secret. It's my kind of book, a 1-hour read. You know, it's like the greatest sales in the world, a 1-hour read. I love those books. But anyway, the point is I want you to think big. And I'm going to just tell you a story about a friend of mine, Martina McBride. She's a country singer. And I just got text right before this event tonight that she was on Oprah today talking about this very situation I'm going to talk to you about. But I met her 11 years ago at a social event. I was the host of the table. I introduced myself. I said, "Where are you from?" And if any of you met me, you know that's the first question I ask everybody. That gets me in my comfort zone. So anyway, she said, "I'm from Kansas, Western Kansas." I said, "Well, I'm from Western Kansas." I said, "Where are you from?" She said, "Oh, you wouldn't have heard of it." I said, "Try me." She said, "Sharon, Kansas." I said, "Really? I know. I worked on Harvest down around there in high school. I knew some people she knew." She said, "Where are you from, Tom?" I said, "Well, I was born in Nickerson, but I went to high school in Hutchinson." She said, "I worked at the Dairy Queen in Hutchinson, paying my way through Hutchinson Junior College." Now, a question immediately popped in my head, but I didn't have the courage to ask it. But after a few glasses of wine, I was braver. And I said, "Martina, what were you thinking your life was going to be like when you were 18 and the Dairy Queen by the time you got to be 32? She was 32 that night. She said, "I always knew I was going to be one of the greatest singers of all time." She was thinking big. Now, if I could talk to you as your brother or your uncle or your aunt, I guess it couldn't be your aunt, but if I could talk to you as, don't let the coat fool you. Okay, but if I were talking to you as one of those, slip this off so you can see the power of the chicken tie. I made Rob a promise. I said, if I get interviewed on a national news show, I'm going to wear this tie. So anyway, can you imagine, if I was talking to you individually, this is what I would tell you: think big and don't let anybody else tell you how big you can think. Because no one can control how big you think. They can tell you when to come to work, when to leave, and what you have to do in those hours that you do. But they can't tell you how big you think. Can you imagine if Martina would have turned over there to the lady in the Dairy Queen and said, "You know, someday I'm going to be one of the greatest singers of all time. 10 Academy of Country Music Awards, 15 CMA Awards, a Grammy, and I'm going to sing the national anthem at both the Super Bowl and the World Series and do a private performance for the President of the United States." They would have said, "We need to make more dip cones." But that's what Martina was thinking. And you can think that big too. And the second story I want to tell you about thinking big, and then we're going to move away from this, is about, Peter talked me into telling you this story, is a story about Kirk Gibson. I'm about to describe the greatest moment in 150 years of professional baseball. And I'm not going to describe it because it was the greatest moment, but I'm going to describe it because of what Paul Harvey used to call page 2. Anyway, Kirk Gibson couldn't suit up for the game between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Oakland Athletics in the first game of the World Series in 1988. He'd been injured in the previous round of playoffs, and he couldn't get his uniform on. But he sat in the locker room until the top of the ninth, working with the trainer. Lasorda, the manager of the Dodgers, gave up on him. And so Kirk struggled during that top of the ninth inning to get his uniform on, and he got into the dugout just hoping to see the end of the game. Well, somehow the Dodgers, against a vastly superior Oakland Athletics team, had managed to get within one run. And with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth inning, they got a runner all the way to second base. So Tommy Lasorda called up Kirk Gibson. Kirk Gibson went up to the plate, and the first 2 pitches he fouled off. So he was down, if you're a baseball fan, 0-2. 2 strikes, just where the pitcher liked him. And by the way, this was no average pitcher. This was Dennis Eckersley, the greatest closer of all time. You know, if you go to the Baseball Hall of Fame, you'll see Dennis Eckersley's name as the number 3 closer of all time. It's interesting to note that as the number 3 closer, he pitched as a starter for 10 years. He was the greatest closer of all time. But anyway, Kirk worked the count. Eckersley missed on a couple of pitches. And so with 7 pitches, the 8th pitch was delivered on a full count of 3-2. It wasn't even a strike. And if you watch it on YouTube, and I suggest you do, Kirk Gibson reaches out over the plate in the ball zone and hits a home run to win the game. Now, why do I tell that story? By the way, everybody says the greatest moment in baseball history. Because when he went up to the TV cameraman to be interviewed after the game, and I was in a little bar on Nolensville Road in Nashville, Tennessee, and we were crowded around one little TV. There was nothing like this. But anyway, we all were watching, and they said, "What did you think you were going to do when you went up to bat?" And Kirk Gibson didn't bat an eye. The first words out of his mouth was, "I went up there to hit a home run." You know, it's interesting. If he would have turned to the men in the dugout as he walked up there after having been in the locker room, the trainer working on him that whole game, and said, "Guys, you're about to see baseball history. I'm now going to perform the greatest moment in baseball history," they would have said, "You've got too much pain medication, Kirk. Good luck. We love you, no matter what happens." Right? But that's not what Kirk Gibson thought. He thought big. And just remember as you begin your fight that there's nobody who can tell you how big you think. Next thing that I want to talk about is persistence and determination. I want to talk about persistence and determination because I've seen it over and over again cause people in sales to be successful. I spoke with a woman named Sharon Lecter in Japan this summer. She wrote the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Pay Your Family First, and she just finished a new book. It was called 3 Feet from Gold. And it was based on the story of a prospector in Alaska who had spent 40 years of his life looking for gold, and in the middle of a blizzard gave up. He just lay down and died because he couldn't find the gold. And in the spring they found his body, and 3 feet from where he laid down to die was the richest gold vein in Alaska. And the point, of course, is don't quit 3 feet from gold. You know, you guys have been through the worst times you can imagine in your company, right? Now the things are on the uphill, on the go. You know, you've been provided more tools and education than ever, more advertising than ever. I was so excited to see all the things that you guys are doing as a company to help you personally, individually be successful. That won't make you successful, by the way. You know, John Kennedy was famous for saying, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." I'd ask you what you can do for your company, not what your company can do for you. Because your company is a boat, and we're all in the boat. And when we're in a boat out in the middle of the ocean, we don't say, "That's Bill's hole in the boat." We don't say, "That belongs to accounting. That's customer service." We don't say, "That's sales." You know what we do? We fight each other to get to the hole because we know our survival is based on plugging the hole in the boat. And if you start thinking about your company as a boat, you'll start plugging holes too. And not only will you run, you'll ask everybody else to help. And pretty soon you'll get something like synergy going again, and things will be exciting and fun. But anyway, it's a little bit off the subject of persistence and determination, right? But anyway, I just want you to know that persistence and determination can determine success. Calvin Coolidge said this. He said that nothing in the world will take the place of persistence. Talent will not. The world is full of unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. He said the slogan, "Press on," has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. Now my last idea is this, that change is not the enemy. We all have hope. That's why we're here. We hope for something better. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what is that hope based on? It's based on change. Can you imagine showing up here tomorrow night and listening to this all over again? We have to have change to have hope. And yet so many times in my younger career as a salesperson, they changed my territory. I said, "I don't like that." They changed my boss. I said, "I don't like that." They changed my commission. I said, "I don't like that." They changed my company products. I don't like that. They lowered the service to customer. I don't like that. Then they gave me stock options. I like that. They gave me a raise. I like that. They gave me more territory. I like that. They said, "We're going to pay you more for this." I like that. You know, it was so easy for me to decide at the moment what was good and bad. You know, it's like the bird that fell out of the tree in the freezing cold. That was bad. But he happened to land in a warm pile of manure. That was good. He was so happy he started singing and the cat ate him. That was bad. Now, on the surface, which one of those changes was good and which one was bad? We don't know. We're impossible to know. And a quick story about change. And it's about the Dallas Ice Company. The Dallas Ice Company, everybody in here knows who that is, but you don't know the name. They delivered ice door to door in Dallas when people had ice boxes before the refrigerator was invented. When the refrigerator was invented, the Dallas Ice Company had a board meeting. They said, "Let's get out of the ice business." But there were some people in the meeting who said, no, we can morph. And they suggested that they downsize, but they put their carts and trucks on the busiest corners in Dallas, and they sell ice out of the back. And that was working. And then somebody got the brilliant idea in the company to chip the ice and pour syrup over it and call that a Slurpee. And they got a patent on that. And today the Dallas Ice Company is better known as the Southland Corporation. You may know them as 7-Eleven. You see, what if they had said, we can't sell ice? But you see, in every seeming adversity, there's a seed for greater growth. And my sales manager told me that over the years, and I've tried to remind myself of that at all times in my business career. In every seeming adversity, there's a seed for greater growth. And when NCR sued us as a little ATM business, I thought we might be out of business. But I remembered to tell my senior managers, in every seeming adversity, there's a seed for greater growth. Fast forward 6 years, we had our sales meeting this year, and usually we allow vendors at our sales meeting, and they pay for the lunch, they pay for the dinner. They want to be with a company that is selling more bank equipment than any other independent company in the United States. And so I asked my CEO the other day, before the meeting, I said, Walt, how many vendors do we have coming to the meeting, and what are they sponsoring? And he said, well, the meeting, I got good news and bad news. He said, the meeting only has one sponsor. And I go, really? And I'm thinking $15,000 worth of free bennies for the salespeople out the window. And he said, actually, we have a bigger budget this year. The vendors kicked in more money. It's NCR. You see, in every seeming adversity, there's a seed for greater growth. Now we buy $8 million worth of equipment and parts from NCR at the deepest discount they allow. Next week, or 2 weeks from now, I'm going to have lunch with the CEO of NCR in New York. You know, this is a situation that occurred because we didn't let an adversity get us down. We looked for a solution. So I want to close this evening by telling you a story. I asked myself, of all the stories I know, what could I tell you that might inspire you, might drive you on, might help you find some inner strength at a time when your own little battery, like my own little battery, sometimes doesn't give me enough power to overcome the problems that I'm faced with. And so I want to tell you about a runner. His name was Tom Courtney. Tom Courtney was a runner for Abilene Christian College. He ran the half mile. He qualified for the Olympics. He was our number 2 Olympic qualifier. He wasn't even our best runner. And in the 800-meter race in the Olympics, he qualified out of the first heat, made it to the semifinals, qualified out of the second heat, made it to the finals. And he went around telling everybody he was going to win the gold medal. And of course, all the American athletes were behind him. And on the day of the final race, they gathered on the inside turn of the track to watch. Well, Tom Courtney was a big kid. He was 6'4". And he ran that first leg in the lead. And he ran the second lap in the lead. And as he came around, the American athletes were thinking, he is going to do it, he's going to win. And then he stumbled. And I heard Bob Richards tell this story, the Wheaties man, and he said, I thought to myself, not only is he not going to get a medal, he's not going to finish the race, he's going to completely fall. But in that moment that Bob Richards had that thought, Tom Courtney jerked himself up. Well, 2 runners had already caught him. But he stride for stride matched those runners, and it was a photo finish. And of course, all my stories have happy endings. So he won the gold medal. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is when they got back to Abilene Christian College, they watched the film of the race and the finish, and Tom Courtney's mouth was moving like this. And so they got a lip reader in to find out what he was saying that allowed him to grab victory from the jaws of defeat. And he was saying this, I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. And that burning desire, that inner strength, caused him to grab victory from defeat. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves that we have to have a bigger purpose burning in here in order to accomplish the things we want to accomplish. I thank you very much for your time tonight, and I congratulate you on your past successes, and I wish you great successes in the future, and I hope I'm honored to meet all of you all again. Thank you very much.